Hey friends, hope you're doing well. Hope you got your coffee if you drink coffee. I got mine. If you don't drink coffee, that's cool too. But it's really warm out here. Not sure how long I'll last, but it was brought to my attention 9 years ago today. I was in New York City and I played a gig. I don't remember if it was today or yesterday or tomorrow, whatever, but I played a gig. It was in New York City for a few days. Now, I don't think I've been back in New York City playing a gig since then. I don't think I have. And I ended up, I've been in the airport a few times, but that doesn't count. And I love New York City, but I don't go play there very much. And I'll get to that here in a second. There's a really long backstory to everything that happened leading up to this particular trip and beyond. And it's just one of those things where it might not be worth it to talk about it in public, but it's interesting, and I'd like to talk about it one of these days, and might. This morning isn't the time. So I had an album called Souvenirs of a Misspent Youth, and I had a little team involved. It was kind of talked into doing this stuff, doing a more traditional release. When people talk about indie artists, like independent musicians, there's a lot of different kinds of independent musicians. And like when I see people say they'll be touted as like some indie artist that really something impressive, it's amazing that they're doing all of this still being independent. When you hear stories like that, a lot of times you go and you look at who's on their team. One, that they have a team at all is kind of amazing, but then everybody on their team like has offices on Music Row and they're connected and all of that. So that is independent, but it's like miles away from a lot of people who are just doing everything out of their house and still making a living. And I know people doing things out of their house who are making more money than people on major labels and stuff. So there's just a lot of weird levels to all of that. And my particular walk is I've done everything, right off the kitchen table, Amy and I, out of necessity in a lot of ways, and sometimes out of choice. And this particular time, we decided we would do things a little bit more traditional in the Nashville independent world, and we got a distributor, and there was a publicist, and all of this stuff involved. I remember we were having a meeting, and everybody was getting to know each other. It was on the phone. It was like some kind of conference call. And so somebody in New York is asking me, I'm going to be vague here. I like everybody involved in this thing. I honestly do. But somebody is asking me, say, so Otis, what are your goals with this project? And I'm trying to be humble, but like try to let them know who I really am at the same time. And I think that I'm supposed to say that, world domination. I want to be the biggest thing in the world. I think I'm supposed to say something like that. I'm not that guy. And I said, when we do everything ourselves and release it regularly, I make enough money off of the record to where, we pay all of our bills and live off it for however long, and then we do the next one. It would be nice. Amy and I had been looking for new vacuum cleaners, and we have like an old one that's kind of cheap, and we were thinking, wouldn't it be great if we could afford like a nice vacuum cleaner, like a really good one, and get that. So my goal for this record, this is me saying all of this on the conference call, my goal for this record is I'd like to make as much as we usually do, but also have enough money left over at the end to where we made enough to buy a nice vacuum cleaner. And I'm expecting everybody to laugh, like, oh, isn't he down to earth and folksy? That's funny, that's nice. I'm expecting that, but there's dead silence on this call. I mean, dead silence. Nobody wants to say a word. And as I'm sitting there in the silence, I'm realizing that everyone on the call is like, oh God, what have we gotten ourselves into? You know, who the hell's this guy? And it just kind of stayed awkward like that. And the whole thing seemed like it stayed awkward like that. And people like the idea of an independent musician, you know, who is an outlaw, whatever the hell that means, you know, counterculture and all of that. But when they meet and do business with somebody that really doesn't care about being famous or anything like that, they just want to, you know, make music that they're proud of and try to make enough of a living to survive. I'm not interested in getting rich, because I don't think it's even a reality. When people start talking like that, I don't know. They don't think about that when they think about the outlaw and all that stuff. They're just thinking of marketing and all that. So it was weird. And then the conversation, in another conversation, it was brought up, Otis, we need to get you to New York so you can do some press and all of that. And and immediately my brain goes to, like, cost money to go to New York and stay in hotel rooms and all of that is where my brain goes. And I said, Otis, you know, when you play in New York, you know, where do you usually play or whatever? And I said, to be honest with you, I don't play in New York. And there's just, you could just see where it's a wrench in the gears. Does not compute at all to anybody. They're like, what? How have you done this and made a living and you don't play New York? You play LA? I'm like, no. And there's just, it doesn't compute to anybody, you know, at all. And I said, what if I told you it's more likely for an independent artist to be able to make a living and continue doing this if they don't play places like New York and LA? And it just didn't go, it didn't register, all that. And so anyway, the idea would come up where, well, why don't you get a gig in New York and we will book a bunch of press around it and all this stuff. And that would be the idea, because all the press is in New York. And I don't really care about being in a magazine. You know, the only thing I care about is, can doing this thing turn more people onto me? I could care less about the vanity of it. You know, I could care less about that. But the business likes that. If you have a lot of these little vanity metrics that you can pass around, then you can look good to other people in the business, and it looks like you're doing better than you are, when meanwhile you just lost your ass on a trip to New York. You know, there's that kind of stuff. And I'm like, well, I'll go, you know, and play a gig. And I actually thought, you know, I like New York. I want to go stay a couple extra days and just do some fun stuff, is the way I looked at it. And so I played a gig. There was one gig booked somewhere. I'm playing solo acoustic. I don't remember where it was. And it was nice people that were going to put it on. But there were it was a party at some venue that I would play at. And people were there for something else, but there would be a crowd, but they were there for something else. And then everybody's excited about it. And I kind of reminded everybody, you know, if people are at a party and I'm there with a band, it might be really great and fun. I'm a guy with an acoustic guitar. Don't you think people are going to ignore me? Don't you think that'd be kind of annoying at a party? Why would people care about, you know? And I said, I'm not going to do that. So we canceled that and ended up booking something at, is it the Rockford Music Hall, something like that. And it's a small room in there. It was a nice venue. And I went and played that, and it was a small crowd, but it was nice. I guess I actually met Michael Corcoran, who I've had on the channel here, Austin, writer and historian, who has a great Substack that you guys should all be reading. Michael Corcoran, it's really great stuff. He told me that he met me that night. He was there and came out to see me, and I didn't remember that, but that's cool. And I played, and it was a nice gig. It was a small crowd. It was in a small room, and it was all right. I do remember I always ask, please don't record this. Let's like leave our phones in our pockets. Let's enjoy this as human beings one-on-one. And it was a small crowd where I talked to everybody and hung out for a little while. And so there was that, even before the gig, and there was that understanding. It felt weird. And then later, somebody had recorded it secretly, and it got circulated around, which really bummed me out. Kind of felt like somebody lied to my face. It's kind of lame. I think it's very lame. If you're watching this and you recorded that, I think it's lame. But that happened. I didn't find out about that till way later. But ended up, there's no real press came from it. The only thing that I can remember of note is I went into the studios there at Outlaw Country on Sirius XM, and I recorded. I was on the air for like an hour, and for Outlaw Country. Then I went over and there was a trucking channel that I went in and did a interview on, which was cool. And all of that was great. That's a great audience. They've always been great to me, and I probably could have done that anyway by myself. But that came, I definitely could have just made a phone call and done that, but they've always been great to me. And they have a big audience that loves this kind of thing that I do, so it was perfect. And beyond that, I just spent a couple days in New York and paid almost $300 a night in hotels, and I think I stayed 3 or 4 nights, paid for the flight, lost my ass, spent all kinds of money, and really, got nothing in return from it. And it was like the reason I avoid playing in New York and places like in LA and all of that. And so that went on. And then the record ended up fizzling, although it's the record most of my fans like best, that or Joe Hill's Ashes. And it sold the least, I think, of any record I ever had. And it's the one that I actually had a team on. The rest of them were just self-release things, us mailing it from the house and doing, it's really weird how, just a bad deal it was all around. And we did not make enough for that vacuum cleaner. Made less than we usually did. It was hard to get by there for that year. And just a weird thing. And then I had the podcast going then, and a couple years later, the folks at Pandora contacted me, just because of the podcast, this thing that I'm doing, or was doing, the audio podcast, thanks for giving a damn, this thing I was doing in hotel rooms, airports. I did it in a barn in Sweden, just at the house, held together with duct tape, chewing gum, and good intentions, just like this channel here, the same sort of deal. The folks from Pandora approached me and offered a nice amount of money to host a show that was close to what I was doing anyway. Did that for a little while, and I made enough from that to buy a really nice vacuum cleaner. I swear, that's what I did. First paycheck we bought a nice vacuum cleaner, paid off some bills, and we bought a nice mattress from that. I'd never bought a mattress in my life up until then. It would be something that I got a hand-me-down from family or something. I think I paid $100 for one once from a department store. And so it was nice to buy a nice one, and that happened. But man, there is everybody involved in that story. There's like way more to that story, and it goes back way farther than that. And I like them personally, no animosity at all. But if I say what happened out loud and how bad and mismanaged things were, I'll piss off a lot of people. And that's really weird that I'm the one that it affected, and I feel guilty about saying it out loud when I don't think anybody else even remembers. But that's the way life is sometimes. So the thing that started all of this up was these pictures of New York that popped up I saw them on Facebook, that memories thing. It was 9 years ago today. I was in New York, and I figured I'd show some of those pictures. And I don't remember. There's a couple of them here I don't have in front of me. But the very first one is these skyscrapers in Manhattan, or these big buildings. These particular buildings that I will put on the screen by some form of digital chicanery. In this spot, there used to be a place called the Hanover House Hotel, and it's on a Manhattan street corner. It was the home of itinerates, merchant seamen, prostitutes, hustlers, and a man named Woody Guthrie. And on February 23rd, 1940, Woody Guthrie sat in the Hanover House that used to stand right here, and he sat there and he wrote, "This land is your land," surrounded by prostitutes, itinerant people, workers, just that level of society. He wrote, "This land is your land," right there. And then years later, somebody tore it all down and put up a great big old building. But I looked up the spot, and I was pretty excited about seeing that in New York on that trip. This is the spot where Bob Dylan, you probably recognize this. This is where Bob Dylan and Susie Rotolo are strolling down the street in that photo by Joel Bernstein on the cover of the Free Will and Bob Dylan. So it's in Greenwich Village. I had to look that up. If you live there, one, I envy you. It seems like a really great place to live, but I bet you get really annoyed with the people looking up where Bob was standing with Susie. This here is a picture of a wall that on the Ramones' first album, I believe, this is the wall that they stood against to have the photo taken. It's on the album. I went and looked it up, and I also looked up, I don't know if I have pictures for these, I looked up a bunch of stuff. I found Reverend Gary Davis's apartment. Also looked up, oh gosh, is it on the beach? Or after the gold rush, Neil Young walking by someone all blurred. I found that corner and looked that up where that picture was taken. Graham Nash is in the picture, I think, but he's cropped out. And I don't think if I can find the picture, I'll put it up there. But also found, I think I had the picture for this, St. Mark's Place. This building here is where, and there's a lot of history, and I'm not going to remember all of it, but the Rolling Stones and the Waiting on a Friend video where Mick, is it Mick and Keith are sitting on the steps just right there. That's the building that they were sitting on the steps there filming that video, Waiting on a Friend. And also, this is the building on the cover of the Led Zeppelin album. Is it Physical Graffiti? I think that's the one. And there's other things associated, like in history. That's what I love about New York, man. Every inch of it has something interesting that has happened over the years. I love that about big cities. And if you're into history of any kind, big cities are just, a place like New York is a gold mine. Literally every damn brick on every sidewalk has a story to tell, but that's a St. Mark's Place. And also, I'm trying to remember everything else that I saw and did there, and I'm kind of coming up empty on some of that, but I came back, and within a really short period of time, I did some more traveling, and this is a picture of the White House #1 in Logansport, Indiana. This place doesn't exist anymore, but it was a really, really cool old diner. I remember going and having breakfast there one morning. It's up in northern Indiana, and figured I would include that, 'cause why not? Anybody who grew up around there probably ate there. It was open for a long time, but this is a twisty treat. It's a ice cream joint, old school ice cream joint that was somewhere along Route 66 in Illinois. There was one exactly like this that I visited in western Colorado, oh boy, Western Kansas, and Prairie Dog Town used to be there, and it's the prairie dog capital of the world, and they had some kind of a big tourist trap called Prairie Dog Town. They used to have bumper stickers and stuff. It's closed down a long time ago. And but across the street from that it looked exactly like this twisty treat. I mean, exactly. And there were probably these scattered all across the United States. And I was really excited when I saw that one in Illinois on Route 66. And, so I took the picture. And this is Art's Motel and Restaurant, cocktails, air conditioning, TV. This is in Farmersville, Illinois. I don't think it was still in business. I think the sign was just up, and it was just a great looking sign. So I took a picture of that. This is a giant elephant somewhere on Route 66 in Illinois. And how do you not take a picture of a giant elephant? There's ones like this that you see all over the country. They sometimes are holding a cocktail glass in the trunk. Sometimes they'll have great big glasses like mine on. I don't know if that was original or not, but you see those a lot. And this is a Soy City Motel in Decatur, Illinois. And this got me wondering at the time if Decatur, Illinois was known as the Soy City. I think it was the soybean capital of the world, but just a great looking sign. And we used to make things look so cool, you know? And I'd like to have that hanging in my living room. If I had a bar, I'd put stuff like that all over it if I could afford them. But oh man, this brings up the hardest one to talk about. I'm gonna put a picture. I posted this on Facebook like right around then. There's a picture right here of my cat Babs. This is a hard one to talk about, but my buddy Todd Fox and I, this was 10 years is what the caption said that I met her. My buddy Todd Fox and I had an album out called One Dare Whispers, which means that was 19 years ago, which is kind of crazy. But I was doing some radio things and like some gigs across the Midwest, and Todd was with me. And we stopped into a graveyard in Petersburg, Illinois, to visit the grave of Edgar Lee Masters, the poet who wrote Spoon River anthologies. And he went to a graveyard and saw the names of the people, wrote them down, and came up with fake life stories that he wrote about each one. And that became Spoon River anthologies. This is in the 1800s. Great stuff, really great stuff. And Todd and I come in, and when we are pulling up towards his grave, there's a cat sitting on the tombstone. And I remember Todd saying, "Look at that cat, look at the weird coloration," and you know, and we walk up, and there's a kitten, and she looked like she hadn't eaten in quite a while, was skinny, and just a kitten, real small. And so she follows me all over this graveyard, and we're like, oh God. And Todd has, at any given time, 3 or 10 stray cats that he's feeding on his porch. You know, Todd Fox is an angel sent down to all animals. And I'm like, I guess you're going to have to take this cat home, Todd. And he's like, oh, God, no. I got enough. I can't do that. And I'm like, well, we can't leave her here. And after hanging out for 15, 20 minutes with her, whatever, we drove off into the town, and we bought some cat food. And we came back, and we're like looking around. We pull back in, and we're looking around. Where is she? And she like jumps out of a tree from 40 yards away and like runs right to me, just right to me. And feed her, and she's eating, and it's like she hadn't eaten in a week. And I'm just kind of like, oh my God. I really did not want to bring her home. And I was like, I can't leave this cat here. And so we're like, all right, man, we'll find a home for her or something. So we take her in the car. I'm out on the road for like another 4 days. We immediately went to a radio interview somewhere. I forget where. if you're the person who interviewed me, man, I'm sorry, I can't remember. I remember doing it, but and she sat out in the car with Todd the whole time, and cried in the cars. We're driving around. Did not like being in the car driving around, and would stay in the hotel with us at night. Never would leave my side though. And I took her home, and I was like, Amy, we don't have to keep her if you don't want to. I can take her. I was still working a day job. It was 19 years ago, and planting trees. I can take her out there, and she can live in one of the barns, and I'll just feed her out there or something. And she's like, we can't turn her away or whatever. And she ended up living with us, becoming one of my best friends. And man, every single morning, forever, like the 10 years of when I posted this, she would sit on my leg. I'd drink coffee like I'm drinking this morning, and just always with me. Just, I called her Babs, called her Baby Kitty to begin with because I couldn't think of a name, and then it just turned into Babs, and she was a little princess. And I ended up having these really bad feelings of guilt that I honestly didn't want to bring her home, and it really bothered me that there was a good chance I wouldn't have. But when I look back, like, she added so much joy, and love to my life, and to think that I would have just turned that away is amazing to me. I just can't say how much fuller and richer my life has been, because I had her in it. And but when the pandemic started, like, we moved up to, like, she lived with us in Indiana. Then we moved to Nashville for 12 years, and she was with us the whole time. And then we moved back to Indiana, and the pandemic started, and her health got really, really bad, and she died during the pandemic. And it was like, and we also lost Russell, who was our dog. That was just, and then the ugliness of everything at that moment, it was really down in a lot of ways, and I'm locked in the house. And but a lot of those feelings led to me just turning on this camera and talking to people to distract myself, and thinking, well, people calm down and feel better about the world when I talk to them, maybe I'll feel better about things or whatever. But what would it be? She 16 or 17 years with us, but and we had 3 cats when we moved here and a dog, and we lost 2 of them since then, and 2 cats and a dog. But oh God, we had 4 cats. We had 4 cats when we moved here. Good Lord. But anyway, all I'm saying, if you're lonely out there, and maybe you've taken in a cat, it's a stray. So think about it. I have all these ideas. I've joked to my friends about this, but there's truth to it. I have all these opinions and ideas about the world, and I want to make it a better place. I want there to be more love. I want it to be, I don't want to affect and help people in some way, but and I want to defeat the bastards in the process. But you get a little older and you realize, I'm not sure that I'm affecting anything. I'm not sure how I change any of this. So I can't do anything about the ugliness in the world, even though I'll continue to try. But I can feed that cat, and I could show it love. I could do something in my backyard, and maybe that will have some effect. And so I hope we've showed you some pictures that I dug up and put up here of Babs, and I don't know, hopefully that somehow brings a nicer end to this crazy New York thing. And so when you're thinking about somebody being outlaw and counterculture and indie or whatever the hell all those generic dumb titles mean, you can think of somebody who's just maybe trying to put a little more love into the world and put a little more love into themselves. So I don't know. So I hope this isn't too too flowery and too much emotion for you. But anyway, I'm gonna wrap it up there before I get all emo and start singing some Morrissey or Smith songs. But anyhow, I hope these are good with you guys, and much love to you.